Hey, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. We are so lucky to be joined again by the mighty Andrew Heaton.
I'm back. I actually slept here last night in the building, so I'm just still here. He's trying to find his way out. I don't know. It's quite a big building.
Yeah. All right, Glenn, top story.
Top story, I go back and forth between Antifa and Saudi Arabia. Let me go with Antifa.
Okay. All right, so.
How about the different ways addictions manifest themselves?
Okay.
I'm going to talk about George Orwell-like things happening in the world right now.
Wow.
Creepy stuff.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into that, want to thank our sponsor, Riduzone. I actually got an email from a coworker just earlier today. He had told me that he had started Riduzone after hearing us talk about it so many times. And he just told me that without any change in diet or exercise, he's lost 10 pounds in 15 days. So it's
No,
not.
it was 15 pounds in 10 days, wasn't it? No, it was 10
Either
pounds.
one is pretty
Either
impressive.
one is
Either
like,
one with no
really, I
change to
know.
diet or exercise, which I know the folks at Riduzone don't say, don't change your diet and don't exercise.
that's
They
not a good
always say
idea.
you should have a healthy lifestyle. But it's really, really encouraging that that's helping, for people that I know, that we know, and they didn't have any modifications.
I think a lot of it too is like you don't even realize when you're doing that. You're walking down the, we have the jar of candy corns at our house, which are basically.
You buy
love
candy
candy.
corn?
Oh, I
wow.
love
What is
candy
wrong
corn.
with it? It's like
God.
wax
I
with
used to
sugar
love
in it.
them.
Do you like the pumpkins?
Yes.
Pumpkins are always tremendous.
so good.
You don't like candy corn, there's something wrong with you.
No, candy corn is like, it's like cigars of candy where like once a year you're like, you know what, that's a good idea. And then you have some and you're like, why did I do that? That was just terrible.
Oh, good.
I don't know why I did that.
But I think like you control those cravings. You're not popping down a couple
Yes.
handfuls of those every time you walk by. It probably makes a difference without you even noticing it.
Yeah, exactly. So go to riduzone.com, order a 3-month supply with offer code THEBLAZE. It's working for a lot of us here. It could work for you. All right, Glenn, the little lever
Yeah.
landed on
Yeah.
Gavin McInness.
So I spoke to Gavin McInness today on radio, and I like him. He's funny. You know him, don't you?
In fact, he recommended a blazer, a tailor to me. I'm wearing this is his same blazer.
It actually is very lovely. I was going to
You know what? He
compliment
has
you on
very
it.
snappy dress style.
Yeah,
You can't
okay.
fault him on that.
All right. So tell me about him. Tell me who he is.
So I know Gavin because I used to be a writer on Fox Business for The Independents and for Kennedy, and he was a frequent guest on both programs, although he's now with CRTV. Gavin's a really fun guy. I will say he's a provocateur, and I think that's the key to understanding Gavin, is that Gavin is, and he does oscillate a little bit where if someone beats him up, then he'll be very serious about it, but like, he's looking to get a rise out of people quite a lot. So
It's working.
Yeah,
it's
it's
working.
he did
It's
that.
working.
Really
He's good at
pulling
it.
it
That is goal.
So I said to him today, because he had trouble on the streets of New York, and of course the press is blaming it on him. It was Antifa, and now, surprise, surprise, now that they have released one of the videos that came out of security. This one, watch this. This is Antifa walking up.
No, those are
they said they
ninjas.
were they said they were unprovoked. Look it, they threw something out. Here comes the Proud Boys. They get into a fight, and
Wow.
yeah, it's
One
bad.
thing to do is if you're going to get into a fight someone in skinny jeans. That's it's always a good idea.
Yeah. So I talked to him about this, and we were talking about the difference between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King is the winner of those two. And I heard in his voice the frustration that I think a lot of people have on, who's standing up to these thugs. The media is excusing them. The Democrats are embracing them. And they are fascists. They'll tell you who to speak, where to drive. That's not right. But he is, I think, really torn. And I think his family has come under attack. I think he has now personally come under attack. And I wondered after I hung up the phone, I said to Stu, I remember when I was at CNN, and it was because of Alex Jones. Alex Jones had said that I was the CIA operative that, orchestrated the cover-up for the 9/11.
Which was true.
Yeah.
I was about to say this is all coming together now.
Yeah. So, and I said the 9/11 truthers, with Alex Jones, they are dangerous. And it was the closest I think I've ever come to a near-death experience. And I remember I had to be on tour, and I was on tour for about a month and a half, and we had to switch buses all the time. I mean, security was on me, and I remember that month and a half was really difficult. When people are actually trying to kill you, it's pretty hair-raising. And I decided then, I'll never say the things that I don't believe, or I'm not going to die for a piece of comedy. I'm not going to die for something that I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure, you know? And I think that perhaps Gavin is getting to that point to where he sees how serious this is becoming, and it's not about losing a platform. It's about losing your life.
Yeah. I think too, I mean, I think he is starting to see this moment where the media has decided that he is equally as bad as Antifa or the real cause of the problems.
It's craziness.
And you know, look, I don't love those tactics at all. I mean, I like Gavin. I think he's a really smart guy and seemingly a funny guy. And I would agree with him, I'm sure, on 90% of stuff. I don't really like this approach per se, but he is. When you become a target, when multiple big-time national reporters are putting the blame for all of these incidents on him publicly, I mean, the target is going on this organization. They have identified a way out of this hassle. I think in the media, blaming the Proud Boys for all of this, and he's right in the crosshairs of this.
Can I ask? And I don't know, and I was preoccupied, so I wasn't able to listen to the interview you did with him. I mean, from where I'm looking at it, it kind of looks like a lot of those guys that are in Proud Boys are wanting to get into a fight as well. I mean, that's kind of my read of the situation, and I don't particularly like when either group, if they're looking to fight each other.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I think that the deal with Proud Boys, they are sick and tired of somebody saying, you can't say this, you can't do this. Who are you to say that to people? And so they put themselves in these awkward positions, ready to swing back. You swing at them, they'll swing back. They're not going to swing first. But still, they know
what they're getting.
They know what they're getting into, and it violates the Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Jesus, Abraham Lincoln principles. That's not going to win in today's society, and I think that's what Gavin may be seeing now with the press. They've already picked sides. They are for Antifa. If you go in and swing against Antifa, you will lose in the press. And I said to Stu, and we were just talking about it with some people out in the hallway before we went on, that before we went to Washington, we talked about Martin Luther King on the air a lot. Before we went to Birmingham, I had everybody who marched with us in Birmingham, the largest civil rights march since Martin Luther King in Birmingham, 4 years ago. And people didn't understand. They said, why are you making us do this? And I had everybody sign the Martin Luther King contract of nonviolence. And I said, because it's good training, because these times are coming. I think it's now. I think it's now that people, and maybe this is where the 9/12 Project should be, if there's any of that left, the people who will link arms and act as Martin Luther King acted and take the beating to show the world how evil these people are.
Yeah. Stu, you said that you wanted to talk about addiction?
Yes, there's a book out. It's called Addicted to Outrage. I don't know if anyone has heard of it. It's not good.
Can I just really quickly, I just say, I was almost done with the book, and I wanted to finish it, and I just didn't have the time to sit down and read, and I got it on Audible, and it is amazing. You do an amazing job narrating it. Anyone, even if you've read the book, go back and get it on Audible. It's worth. I had to start at the beginning because I was really I started listening and I was like, what all have I missed? So I started it from the beginning.
A lot.
It's so great.
Thanks.
But yeah, when it comes to the addiction to outrage, one of the things we've talked about before, and this goes on both sides of the aisle, but we've talked about it with the media, and I think there's this obsession or addiction to sort of Trump-related outrage, right? Like the outrage of the day, he tweets something, everyone gets outraged, and this goes on and on. There's different levels of it, though, right? There's the Kavanaugh level of it where, I mean, people I think are generally balanced in the media went kind of off the rocker with that story. There was just so much of that going on, and really just assigning standards of, of guilt to people who they had absolutely no idea about their guilt. And that just got really strange. But there's a more subtle, slow burn that goes along with this as well. And we have an example of it from CNN. This is a story they're talking about where Trump did an interview this past weekend where he talked about that he was saying, "I'm not a baby." And it was kind of a little bit of a phrase, but look at the way that they handled this, and it's just a bizarre. It's more of an obsession than an addiction, maybe. But watch the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
Reports that he had his half-brother assassinated, slave labor, public executions. This is a guy you love.
I know all these things. I mean, I'm not a baby. I'm not saying I trust everybody in the White House. I'm not a baby.
Who's your baby?
Yeah, Jonathan Martin, he's not a baby. Yeah. He's not a baby. Why is he telling us he's not a baby? He's obsessed with whether or not people are calling him a baby.
John, when I came on this morning, I didn't know there'd be a sort of Freudian segment. Yeah. You're looking at the
oh yes
at the president. Yeah, I'm not sure why. Look, I think that's kind of like an old New York real estate term. It's kind of like a sort of 70s, 80s reference, I guess, to like, I'm a sophisticate, I get the tough, cruel world out there, and I'm not naive. But he also told Stalin, he said, I'm president and you're not, which I thought was like as extraordinary as saying he was not a baby.
It may be the type of thing that, in fact, a
baby would say?
If the baby could talk.
Baby is actually it's a Trump verbal tick. There was a scene in the book I did during the campaign where Trump blows up at Paul Manafort, who has decided that in order to communicate with Trump, who won't listen to him anymore, this is toward the end of Manafort's tenure, he has to go on cable TV and speak to Trump through TV. And there's a scene where Trump blows up at Manafort and says, do you think I'm a baby? Am I a baby, Paul? Do I wear a little diaper? And it's a mental image that Trump apparently is obsessed with.
No, I think the media is.
What? Like, again, I don't, Trump is not my guy. I'm not a fan. I don't understand why they are so obsessed with this. The guy said baby in 2 separate conversations in his life that we know about. And they're saying multiple times he's obsessed with it. Why?
This isn't unless I was a real estate mogul in the 70s and 80s, I know it's because, what do you think I am, a baby?
Yeah.
Meaning, I can handle it.
I can handle it, right?
I mean, it's just so crazy.
A very standard phrase to use in that context. And so he's used it in 2 separate conversations. One we know about, one has been reported on in a previous book, multiple years apart. And you saw the edits in there. This is like a 6 or 7 minute conversation about how he's obsessed with using the word baby, which is there's no evidence this is actually true, nor would it matter.
Do you remember what Ted Koppel said a couple of weeks ago when he had Brian Stelter up on stage and he was like, CNN, you guys are over. Yes. Without him, you're nothing. You love this stuff. And Brian was like, no, of course not. Well, yeah, this is proof of it. We have Saudi Arabia killing a guy, chopping him up, putting him into a suitcase, saying they didn't do it, and then saying, okay, yeah, we did it, and the suitcase thing is true.
And to this point, the people talking about Saudi Arabia coming out and admitting that that's true, that was CNN's information. CNN is the one who actually broke the story, and they're talking about whether he's a baby or not.
So they break the story and then interrupt that story.
Yeah, we've got something much more important. Did you see he calls baby? There's so many important things that are going on, and no one's talking about it.
Yeah, and I think that's why it matters, right, on this particular story. It's there are real things. You can actually, if you want to go against Trump, you can find lots of real stuff to go after him on.
Yeah, there's plenty of reason to.
As a comedy writer.
Yes. Well, honestly, he's actually hard to work with from a comedy perspective because you want to be able to accelerate and exaggerate, and he's kind of a walking onion headline. So if he comes out and he's like, today I will, I can't do a good job. I will hang Rosie O'Donnell. I'm like, I don't know where to take that. So he's hard to do comedy with. But there are plenty of particular really good reasons to dislike the man. However, I think getting hung up and obsessed on day-to-day stuff. For one thing that I've noticed, there are all these things going on, and it's pretty easy to both lead him around by the nose, because if you comment on a body part, he will talk about it. Which, if I ever get to meet him, I will absolutely be like, your ears are great. Why are you even? And then he'll bring it up again. But at the same time, if he says something weird, because everyone in the media is so attentive to everything he's saying, and it's like, take a deep breath. Because there's probably some real, go back to the tax returns or something. I don't know, pick a topic and stay with it rather than just going on,
It's true, and I think like this is a major fault. It's why we get in these weird cycles where we're just obsessing about nothing. Today I went on my little Twitter app, I went to settings, I went to content preferences, and then muted words, and I put in horse face because I don't want to see any tweets about Donald Trump's tweet about calling Stormy Daniels a horse face. I don't care about it. It does not make any difference to me in any way, and I want it off of my feed completely. And you know what? It's been a wonderful day. Yeah. I get lots of actual real information instead of the 9,000 jokes and comments from everybody in the world about whether he's a horse face.
But if there's some sort of horse facial care product that you were otherwise going to be exposed to for your horse.
You've missed it.
What happens to the first human horse face transplant?
You know, I'm going to be behind that news. I'm going to be out of the news cycle on that.
My horse still has acne. Only.
Back in a minute.
I just had a jar of horse face. Available now.
Before we get into it, want to go ahead and thank our sponsor, My Patriot Supply. Glenn, you rave about how great their food is.
My Patriot Supply is something that, remember when we first started talking, it was like 9/11, I first started thinking, I should buy some gold. And then, you know, there was talk about ricin and all this other stuff. I'm like, this is not good. I think I want to store some food. At that time, literally, it'd be like you'd get like wheat in a big barrel, and you'd be like, I don't see myself grinding wheat to make bread in an emergency. It's just not going to happen. My Patriot Supply actually started with a guy who was a prepper himself, and he started getting stuff, and he's like, this is crap. And so started going to manufacturers and companies and saying, no, we want this. So they made it it grew out of a prepper's frustration. And right now you can get, for $75, a 2-week emergency food supply. Everybody should have one. I mean, you know.
Shelf life of 25 years, right?
Yeah, 25 years. And I'm just saying it is good enough that if the wife isn't around and you don't want to cook, maybe a few of those disappear on a weekend. I'm just saying.
Not that that's ever
But
happened.
then when the grid does go down, they're like, thank God we've got that fortnight supply. And you're like, you know when you went to Las Vegas to see Cirque du Soleil? I ate all the food. I'm sorry.
Crap.
I've got a bucket of wheat.
So you can go to preparewithnews.com, and like Glenn said, 2-week emergency food supply kit for $75. That's a steal. Go there now. All right, Andrew, you said George Orwell.
Yeah. So there's a group that I want to talk about. It's called the Uyghurs, who are in I think it's Xinjiang or Xinjiang, China. So this is far western China, and they're an ethnic minority, and they're also a religious minority because they're Muslims in China, and are. There was a report that came out that the regional, chairman of the governor of that area, who's not elected by them, was saying, "Don't worry, the camps that we're putting these people in are just vocational training centers, and we give them a touch of color. It makes life more colorful," I think was his phrase. But all of the people coming out of it are saying, "No, we're being tortured." There was one guy that tried to kill himself, and they gave him 6 extra years in the camp. So they punished.
Well, they needed to see more films.
Right. He hadn't. Right. And you have to get food. You have to sing patriotic songs about how wonderful China is. They encourage you to give up Islam in favor of the Communist Party. And this is terrible, right? But the creepy part that I'm kind of looking at, going, ooh, is I feel bad about this regardless. But they've got 40,000 CCTV cameras in this region of China. And they've got facial recognition software for all of these people, or at least a substantial portion. About 1 million people are in these camps right now. So the population of Montana is over there, and they've got they'll do a swab to get DNA traces. So I mean, this is a level of surveillance that George Orwell didn't even think of in 1984. I mean, it's intense, bad stuff happening over there to them.
They are what's frightening to me, and I think that the torching of the Christian churches over there, the taking down of the cross, the removal of Jesus to put President Xi on the altar, that is all Hitler-like stuff. And I think they targeted the Christians first. And now the Pope is saying, oh, by the way, the Vatican doesn't need to pick the bishops. You pick the bishops, Communist Party, and we'll accept them as our bishops. That's insane. That is taking the underground church and killing it. Because nobody stood up, I really think it's the lesson that Hitler learned when he watched what happened in Turkey with the genocide of the Armenians. Hitler saw that no one stood up for the Christians. He said, if they can do that to the Christians, I can do whatever I want to the Jews. China, doing this to the Christians, nobody steps up. He can do whatever he wants to the Muslims. And that's a real sentence on us. We don't seem to care. 1 million people is nothing. They are building these camps all over. It's not just going to be the Muslims that are in it. The Sharp Eyes program starts in 2020, and that is countrywide.
And can you remind the audience what that is, Sharp Eyes?
Sharp Eyes is a total and complete surveillance state. They already have it in several, I think I wrote about it in the book. They have it in
Terrifying.
terrifying, isn't it?
Right, yes.
Yeah, they have it in several provinces. The people didn't like it at first. Now they
sure
say
they love
it's
it.
great. Yeah, they love it. They all love it.
They're all smiling every time
Why
they
would
walk by
they?
camera.
Why would they have any anything?
If you jaywalk, you get points taken from you.
Is this a social ranking of like one to 1,000 or 1 to 700 or something?
Everybody
And
starts at 1,000.
Everyone's got like a kind of a credit report for their like civic wonderfulness and that kind of thing.
Very
And
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror, yes.
Black,
exactly.
It's very Black Mirror, and if you speak out against it, your kids aren't going to school. They're not going at school at all. You can't travel. You can't go buy food in certain stores. It is total surveillance, and it's where the world is headed. And Google is helping them with this.
Yes.
And if nobody is in the West is going to stand up,
Like, Google's banned in China though, isn't it? So are they?
used to be.
Oh, did it come back?
Oh, then now they're helping.
They're helping.
Really?
So they're going to
Yeah.
offer a search engine that
Right.
censors certain
really?
Yeah, they're
searches.
censoring.
They were doing that for a while, where you couldn't search for Tiananmen Square or Taiwan or Tibet. There's a lot of things that you couldn't search.
You can't search for things, and they're also going to, if anybody does search for them, of course, part of the Sharp Eyes program, they'll turn all that information over.
I'm kind of where I was in the China International Stand-Up Comedy Competition about 4 months ago, and I got to finals, by the way, which is very good for a guy that doesn't speak Mandarin.
Wait,
Listen to that funny line.
There was a stand-up comedy festival in Shanghai that I was invited to, and I was doing a tour through there, so I went through there and did it, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. It was actually weird in that I did feel like I could socially say whatever I want, and no one was going to get mad at me, which was an interesting thing. But we were given very explicit guidelines at the beginning that you cannot talk about Tiananmen Square, Taiwan, Tibet, or any living politician in China, good or bad. And if you do, we will shut the club down. And it was more like, I'd probably be okay, but the people running the club might have severe problems later. And I, of course, called my parents, be like, this is nonsense communism, a dusty from history. And I'm thinking now, like, I wonder if I should go back. I don't, because I want to go to Hong Kong someday. I'm honestly kind of worried. I also wrote a book called Laughter's Better Than Communism. And I'm like, if they ever did a Google search, I think it would be very clear my position on laughter versus communism.
I've talked to people who have traveled over and who are in the intelligence business, and they're monitoring. They'll monitor every phone call from you or anybody else, especially if you're in the media. They will monitor all your phone calls. They will monitor everything. They know who you are at all times.
I would suggest maybe
Skip
not.
Hong Kong?
Yeah,
Just go straight to
maybe.
Pyongyang.
Just like YouTube in or something.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I could it's an enterprising part of China. Maybe I can get some kid to carry an iPad around. And
There you go.
I've always wanted to go to Russia. It's been since a kid. I've wanted to go to Red Square. I don't know why. I've always wanted to go to Red Square.
You should totally do it.
Don't do
Nobody
that.
will ever.
Yes, do it, go.
Nobody I know would ever go with me, so I never went. Now I don't think I'm going.
Yeah, go by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Back in a minute.
Seriously, just think, it's easy. We could set you up with. I'll pay for your flight. I will pay for your flight.
Mercury One is the gala is coming up for that soon. It is November 17th, and right now they are auctioning off a beautiful. We just did a Facebook Live video with it earlier, so go to, was it your page?
Yeah,
Glenn Beck,
glennbeck.com or
Facebook.
Mercury1.
Mercury1.org, but it's a Mercedes CLA 250, and you get a raffle ticket to win it.
This is how my charity can say 100% of the proceeds that are raised for the hurricane go to the hurricane, because once a year we sell raffle tickets, and this is what pays for the other expenses. So go to mercury1.org now. Please buy a raffle ticket and come see us in the gala. Find it all at mercury1.org.
Can we get free raffle tickets?
We should.
No, it's for charity.
Can I just have the car?
No, it's charity.
Oh.
Wow.
That would